Well, now we've reached what many consider to be the low point in the franchise, but I don't know, I kinda like this one. Jurassic Park 3. That's right, we did away with the weird naming convention of the Lost World, and now we're going back to straight up numbers. Jurassic Park 3. And Jurassic Park 3 is directed by Joe Johnston this time, not Steven Spielberg. And Joe Johnston isn't a bad choice to direct a Spielberg-led franchise because he's emulated Spielberg's style in movies like The Rocketeer and more recently Captain America the First Avenger. And he seems to enjoy that vintage 1940s inspired throwback style. And with something like Jurassic Park, I feel like that could really help the movie. But unfortunately, he doesn't really do that, and the movie production wise is just kind of flat and straightforward. There's not a whole lot of style in here, and that's probably because this movie really isn't trying to be a Jurassic Park movie. It's only an hour and a half long. It's the shortest of the franchise, and this is straight up a B survival monster movie. You've got these civilians that are stranded on this island, and you've got dinosaurs hunting them, and they gotta make it off some way, somehow. And that's pretty much it. It actually reminds me a lot of the movie Raptor Island that I saw on the Sci-Fi Channel a few times. It's super cheesy. The dinosaurs look like renderings from a video game from the PS2 generation. It's really bad. But for whatever reason, it just hits that guilty pleasure part of me. And watching Jurassic Park 3 again, I'm reminded why I like these kind of cheesy dinosaur movies, because it's just cool to see people on an island trying to survive dinosaur attacks. That idea is inherently cool. Now, it's not as inherently cool as a theme park full of dinosaurs, which was the impetus for Jurassic Park, but it's still a fun idea. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So this movie brings back Sam Neill as Dr. Alan Grant, and he's kind of moved down from Jurassic Park. He doesn't really want to go back there. And him and Sattler are not together. She married some other dude, so that whole nice, happy, optimistic ending of the first movie is just null and void right now because they did not end up together. They don't end up together at the end of this movie at all. So yeah, isn't that what you hoped would happen with these two guys that clearly had a lot of chemistry and liked each other, and you were rooting for them and you wanted them to get together at the end of the first movie, and I guess that just didn't happen. Isn't that a bummer? But regardless, Dr. Grant is approached by William H. Macy and his wife, who are supposedly these rich thrill seekers. They've done all the expensive vacations they can, and now they're going to Isla Sorna, Site B from Jurassic Park 2. I still don't really know why they haven't just gone back to Site A, since that's where all the really cool stuff is. But anyway, they want a helicopter tour over Site B, and they need a guy to kind of point out the different dinosaurs and different things to see down there. So Sam Neill kind of gets suckered into taking them, and he brings along his intern Billy, played by Alejandro Nivola, and he's this young guy, very enthusiastic about paleontology. He's all about it. He thinks that Jurassic Park is such a wealth of information to learn from, so he's gung-ho about it. And Dr. Grant is the more hesitant one because, you know, he barely got out of the first movie alive. He's not too thrilled to go back into the action. And when they get to the island, they find out that the Kirbys lied about pretty much everything. They're not thrill seekers, they're not rich, and they're not even really a couple. They're divorced, and they're only there together to get their son back, who we find out is the kid in the intro of the movie that was parasailing in the island and got lost. So now the mission is to find and rescue their kid. So the plane goes down in true disaster movie fashion in a very dramatic crash that's actually pretty decently filmed. You have a T-Rex right away that they need to escape, so there's some immediate urgency for them to go deeper into this island and to find shelter and go into full survival mode. Although the Kirbys don't exactly have the best survival instincts, the wife, Amanda, played by Tia Leone, is by far the most annoying character in the movie because she has the bright idea, taking a bullhorn and screaming into the jungle, into the unknown for her son, Eric, and it never crossed her mind that a dinosaur might hear that and come running out of the bush to kill her. And there were times when I really hoped one would, if it didn't endanger the rest of the group of more sensible people. And I might as well talk a little bit about William H. Macy in this movie, because William H. Macy is a good actor. He's funny. He can do a lot of different comedic roles. He can do comedy a little more nuanced and subtle like in Fargo, or he can do big, broad slapstick like Wild Hogs. Remember that movie? But he doesn't really get a chance to do any of it, because when he's not running away in fear of the dinosaurs and he has a scene to actually sit down and talk with people The movie wants to make those scenes heartfelt and emotional, and the movie wants us to get invested in the reconciling of Paul and Amanda's relationship and marriage, and so they come together, reunite the family, all that good heartwarming stuff. But I'm sorry, this just isn't the movie to do that in. This movie is at its best when it's leaning into that B-movie schlock that a lot of studios were doing around this time with Dinosaurs. And while this heartwarming family story is pulled off decently enough, we don't care because these people are not good people. They tricked our main character into coming on this island, lied about everything, have terrible survival instincts, have been the reason why multiple people have been killed. And in this kind of movie, aside from someone like Dr. Grant, who's the leader, the moral center of the group, you just accept that everybody else in this group is going to be an idiot in one way or another, and that's going to lead to their eventual death by dinosaurs in hopefully pretty creative ways. That's what we've come here to see. And speaking of being dumb, let's talk about Billy, because Billy is the intern, and he has the bright idea of stealing raptor eggs, for science. You're an idiot, Billy, and you deserve to die too. And unlike the Kirbys, where their story is of reconciliation with their son, Billy actually gets to die in a pretty creative way. I'll talk about that towards the end, but first I want to talk about the dinos in this movie, because there are some pretty interesting ones that we see. And it all starts with the T-Rex and the Spinosaurus. Now at this point we've had two movies that heavily feature the T-Rex, and as much as I love a good T-Rex scene, I don't think we're ever going to get anything as great as that scene in the first one, or even the trailer scene in the second one. I thought those were two really well executed, suspenseful T-Rex encounters. And here, I don't think suspense is in this movie's vocabulary, because it's not a suspense movie, it's an action survival movie. You are running for your life throughout this whole movie, and the dinosaurs just keep chasing and chasing. So because of that, the T-Rex really isn't in the movie a lot, and that's because the introduction to the Spinosaurus shows it killing the T-Rex. And to be fair, the fight between these two dinos is pretty awesome. They use a lot more CGI here and in this movie as a whole than in the previous ones, but for this scene they actually did make a couple different animatronic rigs and it looks pretty cool, and the improved CGI of 2001 actually allows for a CGI smackdown to take place in broad daylight and it doesn't look super fake. The only downside to him is that he's got this stupid cell phone in his stomach that rings throughout the whole movie. Yeah, this movie really burns that ringtone into your head, and I guess they used it in kind of the same way that the crocodile from Peter Pan had the alarm clock to kind of announce his presence whenever he was around, to add to the dread and fear. It's like, oh, danger's just around the corner. If you can find where that noise is coming from, you can find the threat and then run from it. And that sounds like a pretty cool idea. Even Spielberg borrowed from that idea with the barrels from Jaws to kind of announce the shark's presence. But the reason it doesn't really work here is because with those other examples, they're underwater. They don't really make noise. They're stealthy. They sneak up on you. There's no way that this dinosaur that's bigger in a house is going to be sneaking up on anybody. And you're going to tell me that that ringtone from a satellite phone that's deep in his stomach is going to be louder than the stomping and crushing, falling of trees that will announce his presence anyway? Need I refer you back to the cup of water in the first Jurassic Park? That's how you do suspense. This cell phone business just doesn't quite get there for me, and it is pretty annoying after a while. But the Spinosaurus is not the only threat on this island. We also have altercations with raptors. The raptors have gotten smarter. They started laying traps and being even more clever and cunning and calculating. And they realized that this idiot stole their eggs, so now they're really mad and they're going after them. And now this next thing that I'm going to talk about is stupid, but it's just plausible enough and creative enough where I'm willing to give it a pass, because it's an actual original thing that this movie brings to the franchise that isn't just a retread of things we've seen before. And that's the vocalization chamber of the velociraptor that Dr. Grant uses when they're surrounded by velociraptors and they give them back the eggs. They say, oh, we're sorry, but they don't speak human, so they don't really know. They're willing to eat them anyway. But Dr. Grant pulls out this 3D printed vocal chamber and starts blowing some air and starts making velociraptor calls, and it actually works. They start talking to each other and they leave them alone. It worked. And while the odds of that actually working, if this were a real life scenario, is pretty slim, I just kind of like the idea that as dinosaurs continue to exist in this world, humans are developing new ways to possibly interact with them. And while this idea will be pushed much further in the Jurassic World movies, I do see it this is kind of the start of raptor training. Oh, and I forgot to talk about Eric, the kid that they're looking for in the first place. Yeah, he actually managed to survive somehow. And he's been holed up in this bunker, and Dr. Grant does find him and rescues him and brings him out. And I feel like everything that they do with this kid is something that was done as a necessity for the story in order to get Dr. Grant on the island in the first place, and it doesn't really add anything. The stuff that adds enjoyment value to this movie is the dinosaur encounters, the different ways that the humans interact with the dinos, and the creative ways in which said group of people get systematically picked off by the dinosaurs. Whenever they cut back to Grant and the kid, at best it just feels like filler, and at worst it just feels like they're trying to copy what they did with the kids in the first Jurassic Park movie. So I don't know, I'm not a fan. I feel like there could have been a better reason to get this group on the island than finding a lost kid. Because again, realistically, this kid would have been dead anyway, and I think it would have been a very interesting twist if the kid were dead and then everybody kind of had to deal with that grief and that idea of why are we here then? What was the point? Why did so many people get killed in this rescue mission if it was just to save the life of someone that was long dead? Is it morbid? Yes, but would it have added more tension and drama to the story? Definitely. But now I want to get to the climax of this movie, or at least what I consider the climax, because this movie really has two climaxes. The first is with the pterodactyls, which is my favorite part of the movie, and the second is on a riverboat in the rain with the Spinosaurus, and that is the actual third act. That's where it looks like everybody's gonna die. And if I'm being honest, that climax doesn't really do anything for me. It's just kind of standard at this point. It wasn't that creative, wasn't that innovative. The cell phone would not shut up for that whole scene, and there's a part where everyone's fighting for the phone. They're trying to get the phone before it goes in the water and call for help. And the one thing that Grant can think of to help is Ellie Sattler, who is basically phoning in her performance in this movie. She's only in like 2 scenes, and one of them's on the phone. Going back to the pterodactyls, this is a microcosm of the kind of movie that I would want a Jurassic Park sequel to be. Because the pterodactyls don't just come out of nowhere. They're not free flying on the island. They're actually in these bird cages, these holding cells that reflect the idea of what a pterodactyl based attraction at Jurassic Park would have looked like, only that it's on the wrong island and it's kind of fallen into disrepair because the island was never open to the public. But pterodactyls bring a new dynamic to Jurassic Park. They're flying dinosaurs. They're not land-based. They're up in the air. So how would John Hammond expect to control or keep guests safe from these dinosaurs when they're airborne? And seeing these enclosures, holding cells, cages, whatever you want to call them, gives me an idea of how these dinosaurs would have been implemented in the park. And that's a pretty fresh, original idea for this Jurassic Park universe. I just wish that we would have seen more of that across this franchise to just give a little bit of that awe and imagination that that first movie nailed so perfectly. And maybe I'm a little biased because I love pterodactyls. They've always been my favorite dinosaur, even back when I was a kid, because they're dinosaurs that fly. It doesn't get much cooler than that. And also, I was pretty young when I saw the movie Pterodactyl on TV from 2000 whatever. Again, like Raptor Island, the effects look like it's out of a bad video game. Not good, very B-movie concept. But I don't know, there's something so cool and terrifying of a dinosaur that doesn't have teeth. It just got a really sharp beak and would just peck your face right off and tear your flesh. It's really cool and really terrifying at the same time, and I just couldn't get enough of it. So when I see pterodactyls in Jurassic Park in the third movie, come on guys, what took you so long? I get pretty excited, and this is where Billy dies. He goes in to save the group from the pterodactyls, and he's got this big parasail, and he's confronting the dinos, and he does meet his untimely end, and he gets pecked to death. And I'd say that's an appropriate death. But wrapping this up real fast, Ellie does call the Marines, and they storm the beaches, and they're rescued, and they're free to go, and that's the end of the movie. That's it. Have fun. Bye. Now, like I said before, Jurassic Park 3 is the shortest of the Jurassic Park franchise. It's a very simple, straightforward story. It's not trying to be this grand, awe-inspiring epic that the first movie was, or even this meta commentary on humanity and animals like the second one was. Jurassic Park 3 is just a straightforward, schlocky dinosaur movie, and when it leans into that, the movie has some really fun moments and sequences, but when it pulls back and it tries to be this more self-serious family drama, that's where it starts to lose me, and I'm like, okay, you're getting a little too big for your britches. You're not that deep, movie. But regardless, I enjoy Jurassic Park 3. If for nothing else, the pterodactyls at the end. I just think that's so much fun. And while I wouldn't call it great or high art, it is a fun romp through an island full of dinosaurs, and I can't really fault it for that. But now I turn it over to you guys. What do you think about Jurassic Park 3? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments, and if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. And be sure to share this video around to your friends, because that's how the YouTube algorithm works now. And as always, I'm Colby. This is my nerdy talk, and I'll see you in the next video.